You all to the Baseline Show. We do this every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. And we are live currently on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Um, so, Baseline
At
community
12 o'clock.
is, and now I hear myself again. So, Baseline community is fast growing. And just today we had a fantastic roadshow. I would call it a roadshow in Kuala Lumpur. I was speaking there, and fortunately, we have somebody from Ethereum Kuala Lumpur chapter who runs the Ethereum Kuala Lumpur chapter in the same day. I've never had this before. So in the same day he was interviewing me, and today I'm going to be talking to him about his efforts. So this is exciting. We also have, as promised from last shows, we also have our section with Andreas on the baseline standard. We're going to break that down, make it simpler for people to understand. And if you're not already following us, please do follow us on YouTube and Twitter. Do subscribe to the channel on YouTube and do follow us on Twitter for all the updates that we're about to make. And do join us. So I keep inviting people to join. In fact, today as well, a lot of people walked up to me after the show. I'm just going to talk about the event in a bit, but a lot of people come over and talk to us about how they can participate. So we need people from all walks of life, from different skills. They can be developers, they can be PR people, they can be marketing people, or blockchain enthusiasts in general who want to learn more about the community and sort of create new business models around it. Everybody is welcome in Baseline. The Slack channel is pretty active. You ask a question, you get a response very, very fast. So do join us. It's baseline-protocol.org. Very simple. And I'm just going to display that for everybody on YouTube as well. Also, you can also check out our standard and the code so far on our GitHub repository. So with that, I also welcome all the baseliners who are currently on the show. Let me start off with Sonal. Hi, Sonal. Thank you very much for making it. How was your holiday?
It was
and
great.
and we have the two Marks, Mark Sinza, Mark Haddle. We have Keith and we have Yoav, and we have Andreas, our standards guru, and we have Harith, our guest for today. So let's get started with any community updates. In general, Keith, Yoav, do you want to give any updates from the maintainer side? Mark and Mark, would you like to give us any updates on the outreach or the research working group? By the way, I should start with by saying that uh, I today I used the deck. Mark Rimza, big shout out to you for leading the effort on Enablement Day. I think that's super awesome. Very well done. The design looks good. The statistics which are there look amazing. It's sort of, that story is now coming out. So I think it should become absolutely unavoidable for companies, right? That's how baseline should be.
It
Okay,
showed
yeah.
well. I was going to say that the deck showed quite well at FinTech DevCon in Denver that we had 2.5 weeks ago.
Yep.
We got a lot of response from it to where they came up there and they said, you took a subject matter that has the potential of being very esoteric and complex, around zero knowledge and all of that, and making it as simple as it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And right now, I mean, I think a lot of people, we've been saying this for a while, but I think it's really starting to gain some traction. I hope that, we will do a lot, get a lot more success, by engaging the non-technical, the more operational and management side of the business.
Right.
Mainly because, a lot of them have budgets that they can commit to these types of projects. I mean, baseline doesn't have to always come out of the technical domain or from the CTO vertical on down. I think we're really it's onto something to where you're engaging the non-technical audience, to where it's basically how can I how is this going to make my life easier, or at least make my job suck less? I mean, and that's what those are the two things that resonate the most with them. So it's refreshing to see baseline really, getting taken up by, the non-technical side of the coin.
Mark, I got a question for you. Could you speak at all about any of the questions that people had about baseline after looking at the deck, or were there any particular spots in the deck that resonated with people or made their eyes light up? Any key insights from the presentation there?
And also that's a question for Samrat because he presented
Yeah.
the deck today.
Yeah.
Very fresh.
So at FinTech, a lot of the questions came out there, really involved, what were the requirements and dependencies to actually make this happen? And the reaction was very common across the board going, wait a minute, this is pretty lightweight. This is pretty, this is, API connectors, and, setting up these, shared secure work groups. I mean, we're not having to buy a lot of hardware. You're not having to procure a bunch of licenses and stuff. This is as simple, as I say all the time, it's as simple as it's supposed to be.
Yep. I can share that, I think the thing which resonated the most, I see a lot of people are waiting. So the thing that resonated the most was the example of the wristband for ZK. I think that was a cool example to take for explaining zero knowledge proofs. And of course, Harith will also give us some first-hand feedback because he's just seen the presentation. He's also an outsider. I mean, we keep looking at these decks pretty much, every week, maybe 2-3 times a week. But as an outsider, how informative was it? It's something which we can definitely talk about. But so that was one thing of explaining ZK. The other thing where we build a story using numbers, I think that's something which really works really well because everybody can instantly relate to numbers. Say, okay, yeah, it's if it's 75% of the companies talking about something, then yeah, that is something material. That is something which we should be learning about. If there is a if a credible source is saying that 33% of the transactions have some issue and there's a cost attached to resolving every issue, then yeah, I think that's pretty solid storylining there. Yeah, that works.
Well, and another thing is, operationally, I mean, people are really starting to get an idea of how much of their collaboration has to extend, across a boundary somewhere. I mean, whether it's because of data privacy or whether it is just competitive position. I don't want people sharing my data, but I still need to collaborate, and the people on the other side of the coin are having to do the same thing with me. How can we actually do this without having to do all of these innovative kind of ad hoc methods to actually kind of collaborate to know that we're on the same page? And people are like, I deal with this practically every day, and there's got to be a simpler way of doing it. And we're like, well, there is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mark, quick question. Follow-up action items from that, right? It's like how many direct contacts are we tracking them? Have we reached out back to them? Have we engaged them, and do we have a conversation going on with them?
We've got conversation.
Right, that's our where are they in our CRM, so to speak?
Well, top of the funnel in the CRM. So I mean, it's still conversational, and this is something to where everybody is now starting to think of how is this going to work within our solution set, because there were a lot of vendors that were showcasing a lot of their offerings around privacy preserving API connections for ways of handling financial services, whether it's underwriting or whether it is compliance reporting. How can we actually incorporate zero knowledge into this, because we have some constraints by way of just doing this through simple messaging, whether it's EDI or Kafka or any other type of framework that you're using on there.
Yeah.
And it's really, people are sitting here going, putting zero knowledge into it solves a lot of the problems that they have had to experience natively because of data privacy regulations, or just because human factors. People are like, I don't want to share my data, and I don't want anybody to, gain insight. I don't want anybody looking over my shoulder. This is a
Yeah.
way of saying, yes, we're on the same page, and I can prove it. I'm not assuring you, I'm not attesting to that, I am proving it.
Yeah. I
and
think,
that's,
yeah, that was
There's a
a,
couple on the baseline show. Let's do a therapy session with them. No, I
exactly.
mean, I'm serious. No,
no, absolutely. Absolutely. We
no,
should,
I'm
we should
actually
convert them
serious.
to believers on baseline, one company at a time. I think that's what I believe. Definitely. We should do that.
Well, or standards org at a time, which I think we should do.
Yeah.
Significantly more of, because we have now 2 standards orgs that we're working with, MEF and Mobi, and there should be more.
Mm,
Right. So
Agree.
as I said,
Agree.
right, you can go into the working groups. That's a ready-made funnel right there, because those companies don't have to be convinced, because they're already working on a problem that we can help them solve. So
Yeah.
but coming back to that, Mark, get them on, invite them, let them.
Yeah. No, I mean, and we got a lot of enthusiasm on there, and a lot of the
Right.
conversations that we had, were around, the whole concept of zero knowledge. I mean, it's like, how can I just to a layman, how can you prove something to me without showing it to me? I mean, I just can't get around that. And I'm like, well, I can't show it to you, or I'm not about to show it to you, but I can give you a mathematical proof that proves that we are the same. Does that cross your threshold?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Again, I can't show it to you again, so that's off the table. But there's a method that I can actually prove that we are working off of the same data set.
Yeah. In fact, from today's event, there are also some ZK developers, which Harith has kindly identified for us, and he tells me that these guys are pretty interested in doing ZK stuff. And I said, yeah, there are 2 rock stars on the baseline show who gonna be their mentors on in while they're doing so. So I think there are about a dozen of them, and I'm sure they would be interested in coming over, being probably core devs or baseline. So I think it's a win-win when we do these sort of outreach events. So look out for those contacts, Andreas, Keith, and Yoav as well. Super cool. So yeah, I hate it when there's awkward silence on the baseline.
Yeah, again, I'm happy to do a group therapy session.
Yeah, super. So we'll do that, and probably one of the shows. I mean, I will let Harith decide on when these guys can assemble and sort of learn more hands-on onto how to do baselining. A lot of questions actually came today. How do we get started? How do we baseline? There were people from various I mean, say in various capacities. So some people were individuals, some people came as companies. There was somebody from the government as well. So that's quite a good gathering that ETHKL chapter enjoys. So for that, whatever 90 minutes or maybe over 100 minutes we had, I think largely it was divided. So let me also break down today's event and how it went. So it was broken into one long talk, which was me running through the slides of EA and baseline in general. And then there was, the quote unquote fireside chat between me and Harith. And we spoke about everything, from getting into blockchain to now being here where I am and doing these things, and why Harith thinks that there should be 70 people out there listening to me. So it was a good overall and very interactive session, and both pre and post the event there were a few people who walked up and talking about, I think the greatest indicator of interest is when they ask questions, and which are absolute low level questions like, what do I compare it with in real life? What have I seen in real life which I can compare to baselining, or I can compare to, can we baseline? For example, when I took SAP connector example, can we use SAP? Or there was somebody who said, I'm an SAP consultant. I don't know zero thing. I don't know anything about baselining. How fast can I pick it up? How fast can I become a baselining consultant? So there were, good questions like those which also came up. There was also, and I mean, this guy who asked me that question about uh, baselining consultant, he now runs his own consulting company which is doing SAP consulting. So he's like, I used to work for SAP in Germany and now I run my own company. And how do I become a consultant on baselining? I want to start with all my clients which are using SAP. So very, overall a very mixed group, and a lot of interest generated there, and I will definitely try to get them in fact, I just now posted the link to this video onto the ETHKL Telegram group as well. So let's see if we are able to pull off something very fast. Okay, any more updates, guys, or do we move
No.
on with Harith?
I think we're
Yes, ma'am.
ready to move on to our guest.
Super awesome. And after that, we're going to do a standard chat with Andreas. Okay, so with that, let me welcome Harith Kamarul. He's from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and he works with Etherscan as a product manager. He's also, I think, the most important feat which I believe he's got is under his belt is running the ETHKL chapter. So kudos to that, Harith. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing in KL, and thank you for shepherding, getting together all those people. I see there are over 800 people in the group,
Yeah,
right?
and I
And
think
they're all
about
active.
2000 in the meetup page, the meetup group.
Awesome. That is amazing. So yeah, why don't you walk us through your journey of creating this chapter? What motivates you? How up until how are you organizing tomorrow's watch party for the Ethereum merge?
Cool, thanks, Amrat and everyone. So I'm Harith. So backstory to ETHKL. It was about 2018, 2017. So the previous bull run. There were a lot of people interested in cryptocurrency and blockchains. There were a lot of meetups happening, but if you remember from those days, everyone was basically selling their ICOs. So there were no real meetups where people could learn the technology. And even if you weren't a developer, just as an enthusiast to learn about what Ethereum can do, right? Things like baseline, like cool things that other people have been building. There was no real community for stuff like that. So a few of us started to do those. Obviously not as many as the price talk kind of meetups would attract, but over time it's been growing. So we've been doing it in person, and then when COVID happened, we had to sort of pivot into doing Zoom meetups. So we've been doing Zoom meetups for about 2.5 years, pretty much, until recently when things reopened. One thing with Zoom meetups is it allows us to then get guests from all over the world, which running as an in-person meetup from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, it's not easy to find. So that's helped us a lot to like get kind of guests from different projects, whether it's Flashbots or XC Infinity or Arbitrum. Like a lot of them are able to now share their thoughts and what their projects are to our local community. So about 3 months ago, we restarted in-person meetups, and we definitely can see there's a lot more interaction, a lot of more community building. So now we've kind of been able to kick off more activities for local developers. So for example, Samrat mentioned there are a bunch of devs interested in zero knowledge. I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily experts in that field, depending on how you define experts, but there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm, a lot of hunger to kind of use ZK as that's a new frontier for people to kind of build and grow in. So there's a lot of demand here. I think one thing that may be missing is, as a couple of you mentioned earlier, if there were like some sort of mentors, some sort of guidance from people with more experience, then they could kind of go in and contribute from there. So yeah, so we're doing in-person meetups at least once a month, doing workshops and hackathons as well. A couple of our some of our community members have formed like hackathon teams where they essentially just join hackathons around the world, and also online hackathons, which they are joining now. And yeah, there is a merge happening tomorrow, and the Ethereum Foundation's kindly given like small grants for local meetups. So we are going to do a merge or watch party. And yeah, we want to be able to do a lot more for not just developers, not just enthusiasts, even people who are not currently in Ethereum, to be able to come into the space and contribute. And on a personal level, I had some experience from the corporate world. I didn't stay too long, but I would love to be able to see permissionless blockchains such as Ethereum being used in real world or corporate contexts.
Excellent.
Yes, it's a
Excellent.
brief introduction.
Thank you, Dil. Thank you, Harith. You asked me a very interesting question, and I would like to put that question up for this group, which was, so yeah, and this is something which is for all of us to ponder on and maybe answer and try and answer here, address it here. So Harith asked me a question today, which it was really interesting for me, which is what are the considerations for corporates, when corporates want to deploy blockchain products versus the startups. So how do these two different things weigh in, and how, what are the decision factors for companies to start using things like baseline, base ledger, Ethereum for baselining, anything. Yeah, any thoughts? Hey, welcome, Anand. Just noticed.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Samrat.
Well, I think that's something that we would like to understand more deeply moving forward. I think answering that question at this stage is a little tough because we're trying to work with corporations and even startups to start implementing the protocol, and what hurdles or decisions they have to work through to be able to do that is in some ways hard to compare between the two since we are still so early. But I imagine maybe for a corporation, there might be more red tape to implement something like baseline as opposed to a startup, just simply because you have less decision makers at a startup than you would at a corporation. Especially, maybe you have much larger applications that you would be looking to baseline, which means you have to align everybody on your side, and then you have to work with whatever company you're baselining something with to make sure that you're aligning on how the implementation would work. What the work steps would look like. What should the inputs to all the work steps be? What would be the chosen outputs? What proving system are you going to use? What blockchain are you going to use? Where are you going to deposit proofs? And we've been working on the Blip1 effort, and one thing we've noticed is some companies, they want to limit how many commits they want to make to the blockchain, or at the very least, they want to have a solid understanding of in what specific scenarios you would need to commit something at a certainty, and at what different work steps would you with certainty need to actually provide a proof for. So there are still a lot of I guess these in some ways are sort of product level discussions talking about, we have the standard, but we do need to further and further sort of boil down and distill like what the true like decision trees for all these things are. That makes it very easy for a dev team to pick up and just start implementing. So those are some of my thoughts on that. But I know, Andreas, you probably have some good thoughts as well, since you wrote the standard, and I think you've been working with other companies to help implement it and all of that. How does your opinion differ from mine in any way, or what are your thoughts there?
It's not differ. It is it's more a cautionary tale, right? And it is the old truth that never changes. Technology is not hard, people are. So, and people don't like to change. Therefore, unless there's a massive pressure for change, it ain't gonna happen. They'll say, yeah, we're gonna do it. It's never gonna happen, ever.
And
Ever.
I think also, and along with that inertia, right? I mean, you've got the inertia of if you consider a corporation, as a individual as well, the longer a company has been around, the more layers of hierarchy you have, the more inertia there is. And along with the inertia, there is also the fact that inefficiencies create power centers. And oftentimes you end up talking to the people who benefit from inefficiency, and they're going to stall you in every way.
It's their job. It's their
Red tape
livelihood.
101.
Well, so there are only two levers for change: regulation or additional revenue, or declining business that requires you to cut costs. Otherwise, it's not, or so three. So, but those are the only drivers.
Or military
Otherwise,
force.
I think it's also
of
drones.
course. I think once we're at that point, then we're it's like zero knowledge proofs. Even though there's a great problem. How can you identify with certainty someone on a battlefield?
Drone facial recognition.
Nope. This is a war zone. Biohazard material, level 5. They're all fully masked in suit, fully covered. No biometric recognition, no facial recognition, nothing. Zero. You don't have that available to you.
Is everyone microchipped?
Let me.
Yeah. How creative can we get?
No. It's that is corruptible. You just get it. You just need to access the copy of that. Not good enough.
Are we going to map them with
infrared
images?
assume there is no direct electronic communication possible. Right?
You take off their masks one by one.
You take off the masks one by one. No, that is an insufficient answer. It's
gather all their physical and biometric data, like the gait in their walk, and compare it to your.
Yeah.
That is exactly right.
The walk,
now
the infrared signals. Yeah.
Yep. So the best thing is you let people twerk on the battlefield.
You say twerk?
That's
twerk.
Yeah, twerking. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
We get a demonstration.
To do.
Yeah, no, it's like, but so the lesson there is, right? The lesson here is you need to understand the exact circumstances of what you're trying to achieve, right? And then solve for that particular problem. So when we're talking about baselining here, is like what are the companies trying to achieve? If it's business between companies, and it's just like between directly to entities, that's not, then why bother? It gets really interesting if you're considering that each entity is not, and I repeat, is not monolithic, but itself is consisting of units that actually do not talk to each other, or in only a very limited way. So if you then realize that the exchange, the business process between two companies is actually a business process amongst multiple virtually, at best loosely coupled entities, then the whole problem becomes more interesting. So inventory management, right? How do you know that the inventory is actually correct?
Working.
Twerking. Yeah, it's the zero knowledge proof of the person that put it that is now on the hook for that the inventory is accurate, and he did a twerk in order to as instead of a digital signature.
As biometric twerk.
It's a biometric twerk. So that sort of thing, because that influences everything, right? That influences sales, that influences delivery, that influences SLAs. Then, so it's really interesting if just one company wants to think about it. How can I coordinate internally and communicate that internal communication to external partners in real time, such that they know what's going on without exposing any of my internal information that is irrelevant or not necessary for the partner. But you can actually prove I'm not screwing with you. Right? That is an interesting question and a huge organizational challenge, because that now requires, oh my God, we need to start to internally coordinate in an automated fashion.
Yeah.
But that's where the real value at, because it allows you to start to streamline internal things based on external pull.
Agree. And to the point about data sharing and the absence of it, Harith, let's ask Harith a question about his experience, on talking to Malaysian companies or the government projects or this part of the world. So Harith, what do you think? Are there any missed opportunities that you come across where people are not sharing information, or they are sharing information but still the processes are inefficient? What's your thought? Have you seen any data silos which are glaring at us?
I think generally what I can say to describe sort of the Malaysian culture is like it's much more in many cases more conservative in the sense that like Samrat mentioned earlier tonight about how using baseline you can cut costs because you don't have to do all this reconciliation, because there are all these different audits that you have to do affecting different people within and outside the company. But there is that big barrier of like just to invest in having a team to figure out how to do baseline involves cost, and that it's not a guaranteed cost reduction when you implement baseline from the company's point of view. So like getting over that hump, I think is generally what at least I've seen in the sort of Malaysian corporate space is that generally you look at other countries, let's say the West, and how they do it.
Success stories.
You see that it works.
Success stories.
Yeah, and then you kind
there's
of
a report we're doing actually with IDC on to help people gain that data. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you.
Yeah, because like you want to de-risk yourself, right? You want to be the one that is like going out there and taking that risk. You want someone to do it, and you see that it's a big name that's doing it, then you're more comfortable to implement it yourself. So I think that's generally a cultural thing that I would say happens here. Yeah, that's a big thing that comes to mind from Malaysian companies.
Super. And yeah, I think any interesting chats you may have had with companies operating in Southeast Asia, the larger ones, Grab, Karsam, FWD, things like those which come to mind around using blockchain or data sharing or information security, stuff like that.
I think unfortunately a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, when they kind of describe blockchain, like if you have a conversation with them on blockchain, there's kind of a gap in the knowledge, like almost a miseducation. You know, you sometimes don't necessarily appreciate why blockchain, right? Like a lot of it would be more like, oh, blockchain is this hype buzzword, and so how do we implement it, and not so much how looking at it from a point of view of this is a problem and how we could fix it. And a blockchain is a suitable solution. Yeah. I think some are probably being very familiar with those kinds of stories.
I'm sure this is going to end sometime very, very soon, because just 2 weeks back. So this is information for everybody and also people watching the show. Just 2 weeks back, Malaysia released their blockchain roadmap. And just today, I met somebody, in the event organized by Harith, who was one of the parties who wrote that roadmap. And was it My Digital? What's it called?
Yeah, My Digital, under the Prime Minister's Department.
Yeah, so they work out of the Prime Minister's office, and it's very interesting to see the way things evolve now onwards. So yeah, we have a chance.
I was going to add one very interesting conversation that I had with someone from the insurance industry of all places. Sure. And this is probably completely different to what baseline people would sort of expect or would like to hear, but they were actually thinking of doing things in the metaverse, of how they could get their users into the metaverse and kind of like doing sort of activities with their users or policyholders within the metaverse. So that's probably interestingly enough something that a big corporate insurance player is thinking of, which I think feeds into the point of like more towards the hype use cases, not so much the actual like enterprise or logistics kind of.
Right. I think I can guess which player that was, and I think the same player was also talking to me about ensuring people should we change the premium of people who are spending too much time in the metaverse. Well, it is just an experiential layer. I mean, it's like playing a game, but for a very, very long time. People want to have events, but also, I mean, people are wearing those bulky headsets. So it's a lot of things which come together when companies start talking about metaverse. Accenture, just today I was reading it, Accenture onboarded 150,000 people during the pandemic on using metaverse. But if you really look at those pictures, I mean, they're ugly looking creatures.
Yeah, they're not very impressive, right, Samrat?
Yeah.
And also, I think that actually, to kind of give you some more perspective, right? I mean, these 3D worlds have been around for a while, and also like if you look at the industrial and construction world, right? I mean, you have BIM, building information modeling, which is increasingly integrated into 3D worlds, but that has a very distinct evolution long before metaverse became a thing in the blockchain world. And then you have digital twins, which came out, from these industrial equipment companies like Siemens and so on, where you have a simulation of a real piece of equipment, often with a 3D model, etc., that simulates both the functionality, the process, and also the 3D model. And even 5-6 years ago, I remember like some companies that were doing training with these VR headsets, right? They didn't call that metaverse. But again, these are all like solid applications, many of which are starting to, be more and more. BIM, for instance, is increasingly being used, right? And then there are some read a paper recently about how you can integrate, some information from BIM, especially that integrates information from different companies that are participating in a construction project using some kind of blockchain. I wasn't convinced about the solution itself that they proposed, but generally speaking, you can see the potential, right? So I think it's good to kind of focus on use cases that have like a solid basis, that grow from a solid basis, rather than use cases where companies decide that they want to be part of a trend, right? So that's something that I think we need to be wary about, especially with baseline being so focused on enterprises.
And maybe I can add a bit more on the sort of Malaysia blockchain roadmap that Samrat mentioned. I think one key thing is I don't think the people behind those were aware of baseline protocol. So I think mostly they've been looking at I guess permission chains can also use baseline protocol, but they were thinking more of using specific permission chains for specific use cases. And I think even the idea of baseline protocol had never really kind of crossed their minds. For
No worries, brother.
the
Now I'm here. We
Yeah.
will release a version 2.
So basically so permission chain is equal to non-efficient AWS RDS cluster.
Yeah. I think Samrat
That's
can make
it.
the argument very well.
No,
when
it is.
he gets an audience with the people in that
There were
space.
people
Yeah,
who
no,
challenged the same
I
thing.
completely agree.
So
with that.
it's like all that bullshit stuff on like metaverse and blockchain. That is real bullshit because
Burst the bubble
it's
right here.
completely-
Yes.
because it's like, look, it's like unless there is significant value at risk, why bother? If you're using it for a specific use case, it's just Jesus Christ, just using, it's like MongoDB or Postgres or what have you not. It's just like you're not. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. It's like, do you care if your NFT is worth a couple bucks, that it's like quote unquote an NFT on the chain? No. If it's $100,000, you care, right? But then you have a lot bigger problems, because then it's like you just may have an unregistered security, right? You are doing copyright infringements that people are gonna sue you for because there's no good licensing agreement, right? Completely different world, completely different story. So otherwise, it's just like, I mean, if you want to really be cool, just like, use Arbitrum or Optimism or whatever, like optimistic rollup, right? If you need capital efficiency, then use a ZK rollup. Otherwise,
I want to be really cool.
You want to be really cool?
Just for the sake of being cool.
Yeah, that's
just for the sake of being cool. Yeah, sure. It's like it's like if you want to do that, and then they'll run. If everybody runs on Optimism and Arbitrum, they have a problem in paralyzing the workload, right? Because you still want to be deterministic, right? Kind of like so. Then you're at one point your AWS cluster runs out of compute headroom, or the costs are going to get so big that your fees need to go up because your compute costs are so high.
That doesn't seem so cool.
Not really. And in the end, you need to like really understand in the order in which you're processing things. So you need to run the sequencer, and then you need to process those, and then you can figure out how you can parallelize them, but only if there are no dependencies between transactions.
Yeah. Awesome.
So it's a non-trivial thing.
Agree.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement. And yeah, having Samrat here might help to influence the direction.
Absolutely, Harith. All game for that. Harith, thank you so much for all your thoughts. The journey that you shared with us. Any closing thoughts before we move on to the next section on the show?
No, I think you guys are doing a great job, and hopefully we can contribute more towards it.
Absolutely. ETHKL is now going to be our hub in East of Asia. Okay.
DKP resources are always welcome. You know, we're also, you know, it's like we're happy also to educate and skill up people in that, because
Yeah.
that's a very useful skill to have going forward. My
We'll
POV.
we'll
No,
talk more.
it's our POV. Awesome. Thank
I
you.
don't want
Thank
to
you
speak
so
for
much.
anybody else.
Yeah, but we need that. And you know,
Speaks for us
personally,
all.
I've also started thinking that, you know, probably I should pick up this workshop. So I'm, you know, count me in for that. Okay, with that, let's move on to the next section, which is our new and improved version of the baseline show, which is basic baseline standard 101 with Andreas. So next week onwards, I'm going to have some really cool sounds on the show. But for now, we just pretend clap. So yes, Andreas, what
Class
do
is
you?
in session.
Yeah, class is in session.
This is in
Yeah,
session.
we'll have just like the code don't lie. But it's like, get your ass in class.
Get your ass in class. Sit up straight.
and twerk some more.
And identify yourself by your latest twerk.
Or your twerk
Which-
pattern.
By your twerk pattern, right? Which is if anybody watched She-Hulk, there's a great twerk scene at the end of episode 2, I think.
That's what I like.
It's
Let's
very-
promote it right here. If you're listening,
If
leave
you're
right now and go
listening-
watch She-Hulk twerk.
A She-Hulk twerk. It is actually quite funny. Anyway, yeah. So any questions on the standard baseline? Why we use zero knowledge proofs? Why why does the standard promote decentralized identifiers and fair public credentials? Why interoperability is so hard?
Yes, all of those questions.
Yes.
Please
All of
answer
those
them now.
questions.
All of
Why
those
is
questions.
interoperability
Oh, come on,
115
come on.
requirements?
It's like, how
Yeah,
many are there now?
let's talk
Like,
about the bi-directional
By multi.
interoperability.
Let's talk about the
Bi
Interoperability.
ideas.
and
then.
or multi-directional interoperability.
yeah, it's actually we can here's the basic problem, right? How do I know that if you're sharing a document with me and say and claim that it has a certain history, right? That you're actually not lying, right? Because a priori, right? Especially take, for example, a real use case. A ship going into New York Harbor, right? And you have a container and you have paperwork for that container or containers, plural, with shipping boxes, everything in there. And so you have the shipping company, you have the importer for the different either for the container, let's keep it simple, and you have you have customs. So customs doesn't believe any of you by definition, right? The importer better not believe the shipper, right? And the shipper is screwed if someone before in that chain lied to them. Now what they're doing, they're basically all getting together in a room, look at paperwork and then say, all right, okay, I believe you're criminally liable if we find fentanyl in that container. And you'll go to jail for like 20 plus years. Okay, right? So that's basically how it works today. So the alternative is, right? So assume the shipper was part of a baseline workflow, right? And so now I have a state that this import document, the waybill or the bill of lading, right, proves that all the steps from the very beginning were correct, right? And I'm really sophisticated, right? So this is actually a recursive zero knowledge proof. So I can prove that all the steps before were executed correctly with one proof. Wonderful. That's awesome, right? So now CBP comes and says, well, I have this other baseline. Let's say CBP US or whatever customs organization. And but I have a baseline workflow with the importer, right? Giving me documents and proving state. Now, how do we it's like, how do we interoperate, right? Because CBP is going to say, well, prove to me that this works, right? Because we need to do updates. The importer needs to make updates to the waybill, and we need to come to an agreed upon state of finality on the waybill, right? Including everything that needs to be there, paid import taxes, fees, blah, blah, blah. Right? So at that point, we need to interoperate. We need the two BPI stacks to be able to interoperate. So how do you do that? Right? You either pick one of them, right? To where you create a workflow in let's say the BPI for customs, the custom run. And but you still then need to import the data and the state and the zero knowledge proof, and you need to specify, right, what are the rules, right? Maybe I used a particular type of zero knowledge recursive. I used a recursive snark, right, as my a prover system that allows me to do recursive snarks. But the BPI for the customs organization does not support that particular prover system, or it needs to implement that, or it needs to know which prover system it is, and what is the predicate, what is being proved at all, right? What are the public inputs? What are the private inputs, right? What is the state object, right? What's the structure of the state object, right? Who are the participants that are going to agree upon that? So all of this needs to be specified. And then I need to have I need to be able to verify the proof, and I need to verify the timestamping, which means I need to have some form of provable time linearization that I can say, yeah, the proof was actually generated at that point in time. Right? So I don't have to believe that you did it not just 2 minutes ago, but it was actually done at that point in time. So all of this stuff needs to be on, so I need to have the proof, I need to have the proof on chain, I need to have the state object, we need to agree upon what the new state object is, what that structure is going to be. So all of this needs to be defined through predicates, right? And we need to agree on the structure of the state objects. I mean, in the case of customs, the customs will just tell you that's the structure, that's a template. It's like, you can't get it to work, your problem, right? So it's like so what that's going to mean is that you will once you have that, then you can either create a temporary BPI between the two BPIs, or you can utilize either one of them if you trust either one of them, right? And if you don't care about your information remaining there forever. So at that point, right? So that's why this is hard, because you need to have the zero knowledge proof. You need to agree on the prover system so that both sides know what's going on. You need to agree on the state object structure that you're going to work on, and then you need to have you need to have the proof anchored, or ideally even verifiable on chain. So, and that's non-trivial. That's basically the same problem that layer 2s face right now when they have bridges between them. Right? Because I need to know that if an asset is moved, right? A, it's immobilized. B, it's the state that I'm moving is finalized, right? And I need to know that the state's available on the L1, because if I need to move it, I might want to have to exit it, and I don't want to have to exit it on the other L2. I want to exit it on the L2 that I just moved it on. Same problem.
And the baseline standard includes like the negotiation process for them, like establishing this temporary bridge, temporary BPI between two, right?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. The standard actually speaks to and provides a roadmap of how to do it, right? There's enough flexibility in there that you can like negotiate and do that, but there are certain things, certain objects that need to be there, right? And certain things have to be agreed upon for the stuff to work, right? So at that point, right, you're the that's why the standard seems a little vague. But if you're interoperability, bridging can be achieved many different ways, right? But there's a base concept that needs to be fulfilled, right? Certain base things that have to be there, and that are really hard. They're really, really hard, right? So they're because they involve state finality proofs, right? Validity proofs, right? And not only for they also possibly have to encompass like a proof for a whole supply chain, for a whole business process workflow, right? Not just the last state. It might be okay, the last state might be okay, but it might not be. It might have to all the history was correct as well. In which case it becomes more interesting. And doing that efficiently is non-trivial. Doable, but non-trivial. Right. So doing baseline interoperability is basically layer 2 interoperability.
All right.
That is great. And Andreas, would you like to end today with the open grants, the RFPs,
Sure.
the open ones that we have right now?
Yeah, we have several. We have 3 grants that are open. One is incorporating decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials in a digital asset wallet, because you want to be able to manage your digital assets and your DITs and VCs in one wallet if you're doing baseline, because the baseline standard says, hey, use DITs and VCs, and by the way, you might have to if you're tokenizing something, then you need to be able to manage those tokens, and better be using the same set of keys, because otherwise you might be in trouble. So that's RFP 1. It's basically doing the entire blockchain ecosystem a huge favor, doing that. Why no one has done it, I don't know, but those two worlds don't talk to each other that often, sadly. The second one is actually creating a non-custodial wallet for zero-knowledge proofs. So it's incorporating specific type of digital signature schemes into a regular digital asset wallet. Why? Because zero-knowledge proofs, ZK snarks, CK starks, that kind of thing, bulletproofs require don't work well with our typical digital signatures that we're using for digital assets. Right? They're using elliptic curves, but our zero knowledge proofs require what are called Edward curves digital signature algorithms. In fact, they're twisted Edward curves to be precise, using the Schnorr signature algorithm if you want to go like really exact. But luckily there are existing packages and everything that manage that. No one has just put the two together. So now if you're doing the second RFP together with the first RFP, now you have a full wallet that can manage all your baseline needs in a non-custodial way, which is what you need in order to be able to be compliant with the baseline standard. Well, not quite. That's not true. Custodial is allowed, but non-custodial is preferred. And then lastly is we have our great maintainer team is working on creating BRI3, so that we have we can actually get to the point where the standard can be finalized. And for that, we also need, once that's done, we need a test harness that other reference implementation can utilize, and that's our third grant. So, grant 1 and 2 will make BRI 3 better, and any subsequent BRIs. And the test harness grant will allow all these BRIs to prove that they are compliant with the standard. So, which is very, very important. And we are excited to work with IEEE on that. So there are discussions underway that we might that IEEE might actually be the certification body for baselining OASIS, and IEEE are talking about that, which is, I think, just an exciting opportunity. That's it.
That's awesome news. Okay, with that, we've come up to the top of the hour. So if there are no more comments, then we are good to close today's show. Pretty interesting one. Each week we feel like, yes, we're falling short of time. Thank you so much, Andreas, and once again, thank you so much, Harith, for making it for today's show. I know it's too late in the night for the both of us. But yeah, any closing comments? Anyone?
Thanks for
Okay.
watching.
Keep watching.
Look for the new biometric torque scanner.
The biometric torque scanner, and join your merge watch parties. The merge is
absolutely
today.
The biggest event near you.
So Samrat, I guess you're going to make us all show a signature twerk, right? The next show.
Oh, that is a different OSS project. We're not talking about that one.
That's actually awesome. I think everybody who comes on the show needs to do a baseline twerk.
Yeah,
it's like mandatory. Huh?
Teach me.
Yeah, we'll need a demonstration.
Teach me, Professor.
Sure.
All right. On the but we don't want to spoil things for this show. Okay. Let's do it on the next show. All right. Yeah. On the next show, I'll do it.
Stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. I'm gonna have some
first slam is gonna twerk for us.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Biometric ID twerk. All right. Cheers, guys.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.